Back out here on a very snowy day with the Ruger LCP Lite Rack here, and we're going to be testing out that Galloway Precision spring kit, specifically the light primer strikes, and I've got some Remington Thunderbolt loaded up. It's the ammo that I mostly shoot out of this gun, and I noticed that maybe 1 out of like 30 rounds, something like that, 1 out of every 3 magazines would have a light primer strike. So I'm hoping that firing pin spring will alleviate those issues. And then I also want to just take a look at one other issue I've been having, which was the slide locking back when there was still ammunition left in the magazine. Let's just go ahead and fire off a bunch of rounds here. I've got 3 magazines loaded up right now, so we're just going to go and do some mag dumps and see how this does. So. Good. Very good start. Very good start. All right. Starting to get a smile on my face here. Both no light primer strikes, as well as no slide locking back on, or without there being the last round. So, if that made sense. All right. Yes, 100% so far. I'm gonna load those 3 mags back up real quick. We'll go for another round, but so far I'm very happy. Okay, so I've ditched the hearing protection and gained a suppressor. This is the Odinworks Nav 22, and this is probably how I'm going to be shooting the gun mostly, so I want to test it out with the suppressor as well. So cool. All right. It's a little bit of a gassy gun when you get that suppressor on, so make sure you have eye protection. It's a little hiccup, but that's just because my finger didn't go far enough for it to reset the trigger. Not that big of a deal, especially considering that I'm wearing gloves. Gosh, this thing is so cool. It's running 100%. It definitely took care of the light primer strike issues, and it also took care of what seems to be that locking back on the last round. Oop, look at that. This is starting to work itself a little loose. I probably could have tightened it a little better. All right. So the Galloway Precision LCP2. What is that? The Lite Rack pistol spring kit. So this is a spring kit that's supposed to take care of one main problem, which is the light primer strikes, and that's by replacing the firing pin spring. But it also includes an extractor spring and a new hammer spring. So full disclosure, this is actually the second time that I've installed the spring kit, and as you can see right here, I have a busted hammer spring. This little part right here broke off, but not to worry. Galloway Precision was very nice and sent me out a new hammer spring right away, so we're going to go ahead and install that. So I went ahead and returned this LCP Lite Rack right here back to factory condition, obviously minus the barrel and the laser, but with the springs, so that I can show you guys how to install this spring kit. So, you know, since I did have one small breakage right here, which I'm not exactly going to fault Galloway Precision for that, because I mean, they sell tons of these spring kits, and I doubt that if these things were constantly breaking that people would buy them, but I know that they are popular. So at the very end of this video, I'm going to do a bunch of mag dumps. I'm going to try and do like 150 rounds and really put this new hammer spring to the test, because I think this one broke after like, it was like 60 rounds or something like that. When you're trying to mass produce something like this, I'm sure that there's going to be, you know, lemons here and there. So that's why I am not going to fault Galloway Precision for that. Like I said, they sent out a new hammer spring right away. So let's get into the tools that you're going to need. First of all, a hammer. A small flathead screwdriver really works well. Specifically one of these like electrical ones that have the very long shaft right there. And then a 1/8 inch punch, a 3/32 punch. Then a 1/16 punch is recommended. However, it's not exactly necessary. We'll get to that when we get to the hammer spring, as a matter of fact. And then if you have the threaded barrel like I do, you're going to need your barrel wrench to take off the thread protector. So, you know, obviously that's not necessary with just a regular factory setup. So one good thing too is that if you do have a laser or some sort of under the barrel attachment, you don't need to remove that in order to install the spring kit. Just one quick side note, that right there is not my normal gunsmithing hammer. My regular one kind of broke. Don't ask me how. I don't want to talk about it. But hopefully this little one will do just fine. But obviously if you have a larger gunsmithing hammer, then that's going to make things slightly easier. So let's just go ahead and start by getting a trigger pull weight. And unfortunately, because of that, what is it called, the magazine disconnect, you got to have the magazine in there while you do this. All right. £5, 9 ounces. 5 pounds, 10.5 ounces. So you're looking at a factory pull of about 5 pounds and 3/4. So we'll go ahead and put this away and come back to it. One other small optional thing that you may need is a bench block, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So I'm going to start by dropping the mag. You know, this little spring right here, we're not going to need this, so I'll go ahead and set that aside. And before I do anything, I just want to take this off because it's kind of easier whenever you got the slide still attached to the frame. I'm going to put that over there. And then next thing, go ahead and disassemble it. So I like to kind of pull back on the slide just a very little bit to relieve some of the spring tension. Take that flathead and pop up the takedown pin. But we can go and pull that out. We'll just throw that in there. And it's very easy. It comes right off. And we're going to start with the slide. So go ahead and disassemble everything. And we're going to start with the firing pin. So we want to start on this side. There is a smaller hole right here, and then a larger one on that side. You want to start with the smaller hole. Use your 3/32 punch and go ahead and smack it on through. By the way, I guess I forgot to mention, I like to use just a roll of painter's tape instead of a bench block. It just gives you a little bit more room to work with, and then all of your little pieces just kind of plop right into the middle of the painter's tape. So this right here, you don't really have to worry about your firing pin shooting out, but I do like to put my thumb, you know, just like right here to make sure that I don't lose anything, but there you go. Everything just came plopping out. So here's your firing pin. I did clean everything up pretty nicely, but while you have everything apart, this would be a good time to start cleaning it. So this is your factory firing pin spring. Let's actually go ahead and dump everything out here. Actually, I'm going to keep the little bag for the factory parts. So the difference between the firing pin, factory firing pin, up here, and then the Galloway Precision one, so you can see the Galloway Precision one's slightly smaller and has slightly less spring tension. So that way, or I should say it's like a lighter spring. I'm gonna put the factory one here in the bag. But the Galloway Precision one, what do you call it? Takes away the light primer strikes because it's just a lighter spring. So go ahead and stick it on your firing pin. And there's a little notch, like a slot cut out of the firing pin in the back here. And you want that to be pointed towards the top of the slide. So I'm going to go ahead and get it going. Most likely it's going to turn a bit, but that's okay. Go and push it in, and then sort of turn it with, I guess the 3/32 punch would be the best. You're gonna stick it in the hole and then get the punch straight through the hole, and that's how you know you got it lined up. All right. So which is the bigger? Here's the bigger side. So we're gonna go ahead and reinstall the firing pin, roll pin right here. So go ahead and stick it in there into the, so I just want to show you guys. Now that we're putting it back in, we're using the right side of the slide, and there's a slightly bigger hole, and I'll show you why that's important here in a second. But go ahead and get started. And actually, I made one small mistake. Hang on. I'm going to drive it out just a little bit. All right. So I think you actually want to push in the firing pin just a little bit, and then give it a little smack. Just like that. I hope that was in focus. Because now the firing pin can kind of move freely while you hammer in the firing pin roll pin the rest of the way in. So the reason why we're using the bigger hole is because it's the perfect size for a 1/8 inch punch, and there is a point that the 1/8 inch punch will stop. So go ahead and hammer it down until you hear like a dud kind of sound, and that's when you know it's fully seated. So go ahead and check your firing pin. You can use a punch and just make sure it's traveling freely, just like that. And you can also see that, well, it's kind of hard to see, but it's the roll pin is seated right in the middle there, so you don't have to worry about it being too far over one side or the other. Next thing we're going to do is the extractor spring. So we got to remove this extractor here. And we're going to start from underneath with the 3/32 punch. There is a roll pin that is right there. And you want to go ahead and put the punch on there. And you don't actually want to drive it all the way out if you can. If you do drive it all the way out, that's fine. But we're going to try and just leave the roll pin in there just a little bit. So go ahead and start moving it, driving it through. And then once you got it enough of the way through, the extractor will just kind of pop right out. So just kind of hammer it a little bit. See, there you go. Came right out. So go ahead and, just so you don't lose it, stick the extractor right into a good place that you're not going to lose it. But anyways, here is the factory extractor spring. And just so you don't get mixed up, the factory one is blue, and the Galloway Precision one has a little bit more spring tension, unlike the firing pin spring, because I don't really have any issues with extraction, but I guess some people were, so they gave this extractor spring just a little bit more strength, a little bit more spring tension, so that you don't have to worry about any extraction issues. So go ahead and set your extractor spring onto that little hole there. And then the reason why you don't want to drive that pin all the way out in the first place, because now you can just set the extractor right on in there, hammer it straight back in, and there you go. You actually want to take your 1/8 inch punch and just kind of finish it off. There's a little notch on the top of the slide that is just perfect, or just big enough for a 1/8 punch. There you go. Just like that. And now you got your extractor, your new extractor spring installed. So that's all you got to do for the slide. That's the easy part. And if you're just trying to take care of light primer strikes, that's actually all you have to do to take care of the light primer strikes, because like I said, I had a broken hammer spring right here. So I went ahead and reinstalled the factory spring and did some test firing. So I'll go ahead and show you that footage right now. So we're going to do a little test here. We've got the Galloway Precision firing pin spring and Galloway Precision extractor spring installed, but the Galloway Precision hammer spring broke on me. So right now I'm waiting for a replacement to come in the mail, and they've been really nice about it. They sent one out right away, but while I'm waiting for that to be delivered, I've got the factory hammer spring in here, and I want to see if we can reliably function the LCP Lite Rack with the factory hammer spring coupled with the Galloway Precision firing pin spring, and take care of light primer strikes. So that way, if you just want to replace the firing pin spring, hopefully that's all you need to do, because the hammer spring definitely takes a little bit more skill to replace. So we got a Remington Thunderbolt here loaded up, and I've got 3 magazines. So we're just going to do some mag dumps. I don't want to put my chapstick in there. That wouldn't be good. One more magazine. %. So there you go. I guess that answers that question. You can definitely use the factory hammer spring with the Galloway Precision firing pin spring, and seems like it takes care of those light primer strikes. So as you can see, if you just have the light primer strikes and that's all you're really trying to fix, that's all you need to do. You probably don't even need to replace the extractor spring. You could just do the firing pin spring. I'm sure that'll be enough, but we're going to do the hammer spring now, and this hammer spring is a lot more difficult than the other 2 springs, but it's not too hard to where, you know, the typical person can't really figure it out. So just follow along and I'm sure you'll be fine. So let's go ahead and move the slide out of the way, and we are going to focus now on the frame. So I'm going to go ahead and take like my 3/32 punch. I think the first thing you want to do here is go ahead and stick it into this little thing in the back here. And don't go too far in, but just kind of push in and then push up. And you'll see that this cap will come straight out. And then in here you will see this pin right here that we're going to remove, plus the hammer spring. So in order to remove that pin, I like to take the 3/32 punch and just stick it underneath both the spring and the pin and put your thumb over it like that so you don't lose anything. And just push up and you'll sort of feel it move. And when you do, you kind of move things around so that it just sort of pops. Eventually, there you go. Try not to lose your pin on the ground like I just did. Got it. A little bugger tried to run away on me. So don't lose that. But we're gonna throw it in there, and now your hammer spring is loose, which is what you want because now we can remove the fire control group from the frame. So what we're gonna do is take the 1/8 inch punch, and I guess we'll start, I don't know, let's start with the back one. I don't really think it matters which one you start with. It's actually a little too stubby, so I'm going to take the 3 30-second punch and just finish it off. There we go. And then the trigger pin. Yeah, by the way, you only want to remove this pin right here and this pin right here. Do not remove that pin. I mean, at least you don't have to. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. So back to the 1/8 inch punch and the trigger pin. Again, stubby punch. So I'm gonna finish it off with 3 30-second. And then in case you get these mixed up, they're easy to differentiate because the rear pin has a notch right in the middle. So, and it's slightly bigger too, I think. So don't worry about mixing them up. Just remember the one with the notch goes in the rear of the frame. All right, so now what you want to do is, there's your serial number that kind of sticks out, you know, into that little slot there. So what you want to do is take like a flathead screwdriver, small flathead screwdriver, and just pry up a little bit, something like that right there. Just enough to kind of start working it up. And if your hammer moves, that's fine. It's raining outside right now. I don't know if the camera's picking that up. So there's a couple of parts, you know, we can kind of keep working it up a little bit, but there are a couple of parts that you want to pay attention to. So there's this little thing right there, which if it comes out, it's not that big of a deal, but you can keep it in there. And then you got your safety right here. So as you're working everything up, remember the safety spring too right there. And you got this little spring right there too. So just try not to lose these parts. You don't have to take them all out. You can if you want to, but it's you know, sometimes to the hammer spring will kind of get stuck back in here. Y'all can see that. So just go ahead and take something and kind of pry it forward. So before you remove the fire control grip, go ahead and make sure that that safety is, or sorry, the hammer spring is pushed forward. There you go, like that. You guys can see that in there. So it's kind of leaning against the front of the grip now. So now you should be able to push everything up just fine. Remember, you got this little piece over here, but kind of move, take everything out as evenly as possible. And you don't really have to take the safety out, but I just do it anyways, just because. And it's the easiest little safety in the world to just simply pull out like that. So we'll stick that right there. And the only thing that we really want to push out, and it actually will come out, I think, freely, especially if you have fingernails, is this hammer pin right there. It came out that little hole there. And then you can just take the hammer straight out. So delicately go ahead and put the fire control group, you know, down. And yeah, we're going to focus on this right here. You can actually just really easily take it out by prying that little tip up, which I already did because, like I said, this is the second time I've done it. But it's it's very malleable metal, so it's kind of easy to just sort of bend it with like a flathead screwdriver. But once you do that, you can simply just take it like that and push it through, and then take it straight off. I'll go and show you guys that again. So it's kind of like this. You can just do this, take it straight off. So that all, I guess, kind of depends on whether or not you want to drive out this pin right here. And that pin is really the only reason why you would need a 1/16 punch. The only other reason too you need a 1/16 punch is if you're changing out the trigger, but we're not doing that, so we don't have to worry about that. But I'm gonna opt out of driving out that pin because I have done it before. It was a huge pain in the tuchus, so I don't want to try it again. But yeah, so anyways, so the hammer right here, you just want to go ahead and take your little hook there from the spring, the long hook, as you can see, and just like that, hook it on in. You know, as you can see, it'll stay in there. But if you have to, if this is not big enough to get it in there, I would not really recommend prying this, because I think that's actually kind of maybe how this one got broken. I'm not exactly sure, but I wouldn't mess with this at all. I would just remove this pin right here with the 1/16 punch. It's really not that hard, but it just took a second for me because it was mine, at least mine was in there really good. So anyways, okay, enough talking. Just go ahead and hold the hammer like this and stick it into that channel, and there you go. That's basically all you got to do. So we're going to go ahead and reinstall this in here and go ahead and pick the fire control group up. You can line up the hole like that, and I like to kind of just put a punch in there just to hold it. Go ahead and take your pin, this pin right here, and stick it on in there. There you go, just like that. And you know, obviously make sure that the hammer is moving freely. Hello, thank you for installing me. Sorry. All right, so anyways, so while you got everything all together, go ahead and take your safety, and you're just gonna line it up on that little what do you call it, this little notch thing right here. Lay it in just like that, and then I believe that that's basically all you got to do to stick it in there. Go and take the frame, and we're gonna go ahead and start kind of with the trigger. Be careful because there is the, I guess you could call that the sear right here. There is that, so you want to make sure that the hammer spring doesn't get caught up on that. But sort of angle it down a bit like that, and then once you got it sort of angled down, you can sort of start to work everything down on in there. And again, pay attention to this little piece right here. You want to make sure you don't lose that. But yeah, there we go. So now you're going to notice that it doesn't go down all the way in the back. That's fine. That's what you want. What I like to do is take 3/32 punch, and on the right hand side where that sear was, you just push on it. Oops. And then once you're pushing forward, you'll see that the the back of the fire control group will sort of seat itself, and then while applying pressure with your left hand, just pull out the punch, and there you go. Everything is in. One thing though that I noticed is that the rear doesn't seem to want to line up perfectly. So if yours doesn't line up very well, then you can use this punch right here just to kind of realign everything in that hole. But I'm going to start with this one right here, the trigger pin. I'm just going to put it in there and hammer it on in. Try and get as even as possible. Yeah, it's good enough. So yeah, we got our trigger pin right there. And then we want to do the rear, and I don't know if you guys can see, but this is what I'm sort of talking about. It doesn't line up perfectly, that rear hole right there. So go ahead and take your 1/8 inch punch and see if you can line it up best that you can. And then once you start hammering it, it kind of just lines everything else, lines it all up, you know, by itself. But yeah, go ahead and stick the pin in and start hammering. My aim was a little off, but you can see that actually went right in just fine. I do got a little bit of brass markings on this side of the pins because, you know, when I was driving them out, you know, that was the second time that I had to drive them out. I was using this brass punch and it left a little brass residue behind, but I'm pretty sure that's easy to clean off. But yeah, anyways, now all we got to do is take that hammer spring that's in there and put it on top of the hammer spring pin. So I'm going to move that out of the way. We're going to be using this right here is really nice to use for reseating the spring, but you can also use your 3/32 punch. Well, I don't think so. I think you got to use this or something like a shepherd's hook. So first, I'm going to take the screwdriver and just grab onto the spring just like that and bring it back just like that. So you don't even need to, or you can just hold on to it with one hand like this. Take your other hand with the pin. I hope this is all in focus so you guys can see, but go ahead and stick the pin in there. And then you can just set the spring right there on top of the pin. There we go. You want to make sure it's on this notch, on, I guess technically it's the left side of the gun, but when you're holding it upside down, it's the right side like that, because your sear and everything is over on the left. So yeah, one last thing to do. Take your cap and stick it on in there. And there we go. I believe that's it. So let's go ahead and reassemble the slide real quick. That's my toilet in the background. I don't know if y'all can hear that. But okay, you got your slide reassembled. I'm going to go ahead and put the thread protector back on now for the threaded barrel. And want to make sure everything kind of moves freely like that. Pull back on the slide just a tad and put your takedown pin back in. And there we go. Go and function check. We've got a reset, and then we've got the firing. So I'll go ahead and get a trigger pull weight real quick. But I'll be honest with you, it doesn't improve the trigger pull. I'll go ahead and show you guys. At least it didn't on the last hammer spring that I had. Oof, look at that. 6 pounds, 14 ounces. That basically added a pound of trigger pull. Oops, hang on. Let's redo that. £6.5 pounds even. So yeah, you're kind of gaining about a pound. That's also why I don't really think installing the hammer spring is necessary. It's more difficult for one thing. Installing the firing pin spring and extractor spring is really a piece of cake compared to installing the hammer spring. So honestly, I wouldn't even recommend installing the hammer spring, but you know, I guess it's good to do anyways. So let's go ahead and take this back out to the farm and do some testing. Like I said, I want to do about 150 rounds of just mag dump after mag dump and see how it does. So stay tuned. All right, back out here on this very dreary day. Is this Missouri or Russia? So I'm going to do a bunch of mag dumps. I've got only 3 mags. I want to do at least 100 rounds, but I'm going to try and do 150. Shooting Remington Thunderbolt. I'm not exactly sure how much Remington Thunderbolt I have left in that bucket of bullets over there, even though that says 22 golden bullet. It's actually, I refill that with Remington Thunderbolt. Just kind of makes it easier to carry around. But in case I do run out, I've got some Federal Auto Match as well, which usually runs pretty reliably in this little LCP Lite Rack. So yeah, just going to test out that Galloway Precision spring kit with that hammer spring that broke on me once before. So we'll see how the new one holds up, but let's get to it. And it's very windy out here, so I apologize about that. All right, let's go. I'm going to start the first mag just kind of sighting in, seeing where the point of aim is. So we're going to start slow. Alright, so point of aim is pretty good. It's shooting a little high. Let's see if I can hit that little target right there. There we go. Alright, let's get to some mag dumps. That wind is pretty rough, I know. I'm sorry about that. Can't seem to hit that little target now. Alright, we got to reload, but so far so good. It's nice having this mag loader right here. Alright, so here is mag number 4. Mag number 5. Hard to hit that little target. I don't know what's going on. reliability is great. Right, gonna load up mag. What are we on? 7, 8, and 9. All right. It's mag number 7. Oh, mag number 8. That's fine. The slide went forward kind of slowly. Let's see if it does it this time. Nope. I think it was just getting a little dirty. Alright. So far so good. We're not exactly here to test the accuracy, but these springs are holding together, doing just fine. Gonna load up number 10, 11, and 12. All right. Mag number 10. That was 100 rounds without a single failure so far. Let's do these last 50. All right. 120 rounds, and I can't seem to hit the little target, but that's all right. That is not here what we are. It's not what we're here to figure out. So this is going to be the last 30 rounds. All right. Last 30. Last mag. %. Even on a cold, windy day like today. So I'm very happy with the Galloway Precision spring kit. The only thing I will say is that trigger pull is not very pleasant with that hammer spring. So I don't really know if that's necessary. I actually might replace it back to the factory spring, just because I definitely noticed, especially with gloves on, it's a little difficult to pull that trigger. But it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, it's really nice that this is functioning 100%. I mean, a 22 with this kind of a design too. 10 rounds in the magazine, a tilted barrel design, and just all that kind of stuff that the Ruger LCP Lite Rack does that a normal 22 pistol does not do. So yeah, in this very tiny package right here. So there you go. I hope that you guys are able to install the spring kit if you want to. Again, I would recommend probably just going with the firing pin spring to take care of the light primer strikes. But if you want to do the whole spring kit, then that's totally up to you. So thanks for watching. now I can hit it.